Welcome to the Suck It, Fill My Bucket Show podcast. I'm Christina Reynolds, and I am mom's partner in her life's enhancement. I liberate moms from the belief that they must put their wellness, needs, and desires on the back burner until their kids are grown. It's about getting rebellious from those beliefs and getting moms to say suck it to the tasks that can wait and mindsets that don't serve her in order to fill up her bucket. So, join us in this movement and let's get busy building your life by intention.
Hello. Welcome to episode 2 of Suck It, Fill My Bucket Show, the video podcast devoted to serving moms and helping them to blow off things that don't serve them, but instead fill their buckets, which of course elevates the whole world and creates a ripple impact. Today, I have invited an awesome speaker to be our guest, pediatrician and MD and mom, Kristen Cook. She is parenting I Got You Mama, and it's based on a really raw approach to life, which is something I love about her. She's good with the real and the raw and the sometimes cringeworthy appropriate aspects of pregnancy and birth in the first few years of life, which is definitely my style. So I love that it's from a perspective of both pediatrician and mom, and she likes to bridge that gap, which is why I asked her to speak with you today. So without further ado, I'm going to add Kristen to the stream. Hello. I love it. For being here.
Me. I'm so excited. I love this concept of suck it, fill my bucket. Absolutely love it. I'm so on board.
Awesome. I love it. You know, being able to, and this is something we were talking about on our previous call, being able to care for yourself really means being able to give yourself permission and grace to be exactly where you're at, and also yet still reach out for resources and support to help you with a strategy to make your life better and happier and healthier. And really understanding where your child is at developmentally and why they behave the way they do is a great place to start in being able to nurture yourself. And understanding things like neural pathways and how those can assist us in our motherhood journey can make a difference in whether we have a smooth journey or a super bumpy journey in each of our days. And adopting strategies and mindsets can really help us create realistic goals to live that happier, healthier, and better life. And so that's why I asked you here to come chat with me, unscripted, unfiltered, about the reality of mom life and understanding our kids better, which in turn allows us to feel more inner peace. And I have a quote of yours. I spoke with you the other night, and you don't know this, but I wrote it down as we were preparing because I just loved how it so perfectly fit with why I asked you here. And what you said is that nurturing our kids in the proper way helps us to nurture our own souls. And I love that you said that, because I think for a lot of us, we can feel like failures often as mothers for not being patient enough or present enough or, feeling like we even broke our baby. Some of us medical moms feel like, oh, he's got this condition or he's got allergies or behavior issues. And what am I doing wrong? So, Kristen, what do you say to the mom that feels like she's failing or alone in her journey?
Oh my gosh. So number one, you are not alone and you have done nothing wrong. Okay. In fact, if you are here and you are listening to this, it means that you absolutely 100% love your children and you want the best for them and the best from yourselves. I have taken care of over 10,000 children in my career. I've been in practice for 11 years. I can guarantee you that bad parents don't care. They don't listen to things like this. So please, the very first thing I tell families is cut yourself some slack. The very fact that you are on a journey to improve yourself and your parenting means that you care and that you're already doing a good job and you've already laid the foundation for good things to come.
I love that. I love that so much. So going deeper with that, really like releasing that mom guilt, letting go of that original piece of like, oh, I'm feeling like I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
love that.
absolutely. And I've had so many moms over the course of my career that come in, whether it's because they struggled with breastfeeding or whether it was because their child had asthma. And the very first thing they ask me is, what did I do wrong? No,
Yeah.
mama, no, please
Yeah.
give yourself some credit. You didn't do anything wrong. This is part of the process. And let's talk about ways we can understand what's going on, how to make things better in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where that like collaboration comes in between doctor and parent, which is something that I love so much because I've experienced both sides of feeling like the parent and not knowing like what are my options, what are even my rights, what are my ways of finding support through this circumstance. And I love that you and I have talked so much about bridging that gap between parents and medical provider so that they can see things from each other's perspectives, right? And, recently I was in the ER with Kaden, and it could have been for somebody who isn't experienced in the medical environment. The staff could have been blamed, right? Like this is taking forever for everything to transpire how it's supposed to transpire. And, the labs are taking longer and, oh, you didn't even know that you needed this imaging. That didn't get passed on, and thing after thing after thing. But being able to understand where the staff is at helps the parents to be able to advocate properly and vice versa,
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, before I became a mom, I practiced medicine very differently than the way that I do now. And I'm not at all insinuating that doctors that don't have kids can't do a great job. Not at all. I'm just saying for me, the way I decided to practice medicine completely changed once I had kids. So really the foundation of what I tell my families these days is I may know medicine best, but you know your child best. And I am here to listen to you and to address your concerns. And there have been plenty of times in my career where I knew what was going on with the child and I knew how to help, but I could still see that look of doubt in a parent's eyes. And then I refer them to a specialist. What's it going to hurt? To me, mama intuition is a very real thing. And who am I or any other medical provider to ignore that intuition, right?
Mm-hmm.
It should be the role of the medical community to work with families and parents and make it a team approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from both ends, just like, that should be the job of the medical community. And that should also be the view of most parents that come in also, is to work collaboratively to find a solution. And that can be for your child, and that can also be for yourself. I think a lot of times, often moms are feeling like they have depression or, anxiety, or they're feeling alone. Like you said, that first thing, you're not alone. They're feeling alone, and getting that permission to step out and get that support. So how do you personally suggest that a mom goes about seeking support for either, advocating for herself or her child if she doesn't have an awesome provider like you, or feels like she has that support? It is somewhere. It's just a matter of finding it. What do you suggest?
Yeah. So the very first thing that I would like, especially moms, to understand is that mental health disorders like depression and anxiety are not character flaws.
Yeah.
They are not that you are doing something wrong. It's a medical condition that requires medical treatment. And the very first place that I would recommend that you go if you feel like you are struggling with depression or anxiety is to your primary care provider. And if you are not comfortable saying to that provider, I am feeling X, Y, and Z, and I need help, that means you need to find a new provider. Because that's what that provider is there to do, is to listen to you and to address your medical and healthcare needs. When it comes to feeling alone, I think that's where getting involved in your community can be really helpful. Finding, local mom groups, or, taking a prenatal yoga class or something to help you connect with other women. And that connection can help you realize that you really are not alone. I mean, no matter what you are going through, whether it's your own mental health struggles, whether it's you have a child that is medically complex and you are overwhelmed with all of the doctor's appointments and therapists and treatment plans, you are not alone. And there are people out there that want to help you find the resources that you need.
Yes. Yes. I love that so much. And I remember early in my NICU days when and I know that's kind of your specialty is like, newborns or, childbirth in that first year of life specifically. I know that was such a, concern in my mind, feeling like, I have these intuitions, but I'm not sure I can even trust them, And I think that you had told me that you had a story about intuition and working with a mom. And often we can, and I think you said you wanted to share that story if I remember. And often, it's in those first few moments of their life that we can, if we know how, just cling into that power. Like mother's intuition is almost like a superpower. You can sense things that aren't right. When their temperature is elevated before somebody else does, before the thermometer tells, I call it my mommeter. My mommeter usually knows before my thermometer if Kaden is, not doing well. And so I'd love if you would tell that story about moms, trusting their intuition and how that shaped you as a provider.
Absolutely. So very early on in my career, before I had kids, I had a mom in my practice that was a new mom, which new moms are now my favorite. But at the time, new moms were kind of needy. And she had a lot of questions. And at that time, I was a new physician. I was establishing a practice. I was trying to make a name for myself. The ego was involved, like all the things that happen with a young physician that's trying to establish themselves. And she came in a couple of times for very vague complaints. I don't think my child's eating the way they're supposed to. I think my child's a little fussier than they are supposed to. And I am only in the room with the child for, 15 minutes or so. So I have to be very quick in my assessment of children when I see them.
Yeah.
And I didn't see anything grossly abnormal. And I just figured she was a new mom that just wasn't getting enough sleep. And I didn't listen to her the way that I should have. And she was asking, do you think we should do a head ultrasound? Do you think we should do this? And I was like, no, he looks fine. His blood's okay. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And I kept blowing her off. And I will be very honest. And I did. I blew this woman off. I will regret it for the rest of my career, not because of any legal action, because nothing has ever happened of that, but because as a woman, I let this other woman down.
Yeah.
And it turned out that her child had a brain defect. His brain was not fully developed. And all of the things that she expressed concerns to me about were very early signs that something was medically wrong with her child. And I didn't listen. And she actually was brave enough to call me when she received the diagnosis, which was fairly catastrophic. And she said, look, I just hope that you learn from this and listen, was the gist of it, And I give this woman so much credit in the world. She didn't yell at me. She was just very matter of fact, like, look, I think you made a mistake. And I really took that to heart. And I changed the way I did things because of that. And this woman, looking back on this situation now, she knew something was wrong with her child and she was trying to express it. And me as the healthcare provider didn't listen. And I'll be damned if I ever let that happen in my office again.
I love you.
Oh. Thanks. But going back to, mom intuition, I really do think it is a thing. But I think the voice of mom intuition sometimes gets squashed by society. And it really takes a mom trusting herself and listening to herself to really tune into that.
Yeah.
I think that mama intuition is always there, but I really think tuning into it is a skill that is developed over time.
Yeah. I explain it to my kids when they were younger. I didn't even quite understand it, but I always knew when they were lying. I always knew if they woke up with a bad dream. I always knew, when something was going on, and the kids thought it was creepy. And I'm like, it's like a superpower. Well, years later, it is. It's like you have to develop it like a skill. And I tell them, just like in any other superhero thing, where you don't get your superpowers till you're a teenager, you have to learn how to control them. You have to learn how to trust them by listening to your body and listening to your gut, listening to what feels good and what makes you feel like, blah, and really choosing actions like meditation or audio or things that nurture yourself that can help you to center yourself and trust yourself as a mom to advocate. I love it. It's like a superpower, and I don't think enough moms realize that.
It is, and I also think enough moms don't recognize that they actually possess the superpower.
Yeah.
I think that if they just got quiet enough, they would hear it. They would hear that voice. And I think again, kind of drowning out some of these things that society tells us that as moms we're supposed to do or supposed to be, that is one of the ways that you can get that mom intuition really to come to full light.
Knowing yourself and healing yourself.
Yeah. And that's where that whole concept of fill the bucket comes in, because as women and as moms, we're kind of told once your child is born, you need to sacrifice yourself for that child. That could not be farther from the truth. If you don't take care of yourself, who else is going to take care of you? And if you don't take care of yourself, how are you supposed to take care of those beautiful babies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We often have it backwards. And that's actually why I created Fill Your Bucket as a book and as a movement, and now as a video podcast, because I hear it all the time in my tribe. Oh, I really need to sit down and eat, but I don't have time. I've got laundry overflowing and dishes overflowing. And that's actually how the name of this show came to be. I was speaking with, I consider her cosmic. She's like my most enlightened friend. And she always can tune me back to what I already know is true or give me some really great insight. And I was talking to her about this mom that I was engaging with in my tribe. And it was almost emotional for me, because I'm like, I know that if this mom will just redesign her days in her life, and say no to certain things and delegate certain things and tell her teenage children that they need to pitch in on certain things, she just needs a different strategy. And she needs to say, suck it. I'm going to do something for me. Except I didn't say suck it. I said the F-bomb, because sometimes that's appropriate.
Oh, that's my favorite word. That's my favorite word ever.
Yeah. It definitely holds its place, I believe. But I also hold deep regard and respect for people's energies. And I know of a few people, particularly that are close to me, that just don't like that word. It makes them uncomfortable. And I respect that. And so in thinking about this, I was having this conversation with this friend, and I was like, yeah, just suck it, fill my bucket, that's what we need to do. That's the movement that needs to be spread, because I hear it over and over and over and over again. And I know that it's not just 3 moms or 5 moms or me or, anybody else. It's literally like a worldwide phenomenon that we bring these humans into the world and then think that our dreams don't matter, our needs don't matter, our wellness doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we drink water as long as our kids are fed. And really, it's like the way that you design your days can be completely shifted, and you can experience, freedom and liberation in saying no, I'm going to do this for me for 10 minutes, especially in my book. That's what I suggest is just 10 minutes at a time. And so I love circling back to your story. Before I forget, I love what you said about that mom being brave enough to call you and say, you should have listened to me. Yeah. But she also had grace with you, is something that you said. And because she approached you that way, you were able to become a better physician from it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something else that I want a lot of moms to know in dealing with medical providers is treat them like they're humans. They're people that are still learning and growing, and they're doing continuing education every year because they don't know everything and they don't have your superpower of intuition. So if they don't know how to work collaboratively with you, then show them, say this is how, I always say to new medical staff that comes in when we're inpatient because they're revolving every 12 hours, this is Caden. We work collaboratively, with Caden in Caden's world. We use collaborative medicine. And that means that I don't discount your experience at all. I respect the degree. I respect your experience and you respect mine. And we make decisions together. You don't, order an invasive procedure without talking to me about it, And those are things that parents can say if they're brave enough to say, no, this doesn't feel right, and even to their husbands, I think often women are like, I feel like there's this issue with my son, but my husband is saying, or my mom is saying, or somebody else is saying, it's like, sister, honey, baby, put that down because your dad and your sister and your husband, they don't have your superpower. So if you're confused about if that is legit or not, then take on some skills and some hacks and some strategies to lean into that.
Yeah, and absolutely. And along with that, get quiet for a few minutes and listen to yourself. What is your gut telling you? What is your heart telling you? Tune the mind out of it, tune the noise out a little bit, and just go internal. And what do you get from that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think meditation is something that's so easy, especially for mindset gurus to preach, but it's preached because it works. It's scientifically and physiologically proven that when you quiet your body and you focus on your breath and clearing out the noise and clearing out the thoughts, you legitimately get insight and power and center. And so, starting that as a morning practice, even of taking 5 or 10 minutes to lean into that really centers you so that you can feel those things. And when something comes up, you can be aware of it and take in those feelings and those emotions with intuition. I really wanted to be a morning person for the longest time. And I'm talking years I wanted to do it and really, really struggled. And earlier in this year, I had decided I know that will serve my life. I know that when I do a morning routine, everything else is going to fall into place and I'm going to be able to nurture my kids better because I'm centered. And now I am addicted to that time. I disciplined myself. I'm addicted to that time. I'll be honest and say that I woke up at 7:30 this morning, which was I never sleep in that late. My older kids were already awake and it totally threw off my mojo. I think I even cried after I dropped them off because I was just feeling so uncentered in myself. But I've learned to value that alone time to get still and get quiet and listen to my, inner spirit and what that Holy Spirit is telling me. And so circling back to what I talked about in the post before we did this, nurturing yourselves will allow you to be able to nurture your kids that much more. And it's those little steps of taking time to be still, taking time to trust your intuition, taking the small step to call the provider and say, you know what, I don't think that this is feeling right. Can we dig a little bit deeper? Yeah. Those baby steps, those NICU baby steps, as I call them, are, in my opinion, that defining point in making the shift. So we do talk a lot about that in the communities. And so I'm wondering, do you find that true for yourself and for your community and for the moms that you engage with regularly, that when they adopt those habits of personal wellness and empowerment, then they are able to nurture their children a lot more?
Oh, absolutely. And so for me, from a personal standpoint, probably about a year and a half ago, I was eating like crap. I wasn't moving my body intentionally enough. And I sat down with my husband and I said, look, I need 5 days a week that I get an hour to work out. Mm-hmm. We're going to build this into our calendar, into our family calendar. Yep. These sessions are non-negotiable. And we just did it. And for about the first 3 weeks or so, I had mom guilt. I'm like, I am downstairs exercising. I can hear my kids upstairs. I should be up there with them. Yeah. But then really, as I kind of was navigating the first few weeks of this exercise program, I noticed that the times that I were with my children after I was done exercising, I was more engaged. Mm-hmm. I was more involved. I was calmer. I was really just a better mom. Even though I wasn't, it's like quality over quantity, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that I did for myself. But I've noticed in my practice, it is very hard to convince moms, especially new moms, to take that time for themselves. So that's why I love your concept of the fill my bucket, where you say, take 10 minutes, 10 mm-hmm. minutes. Out of 24 hours, you deserve at least 10 minutes to yourself out of 24 hours to take care of yourself. And I think that is such a phenomenal place for women to start, is to just jot down, what can I do for myself 10 minutes a day? Yeah. Commit to that every single day. And I would love it if over time that 10 minutes can turn into 20 minutes. And then that 20 minutes can turn into 30 minutes. Yep. And it doesn't necessarily have to be consecutive, but just taking time throughout the day as women and as moms to check in with yourself. How are you doing? What do you need? I love that you talked about being a morning person, because for years and years and years and years and years, I was a morning person. And then I became a mom, and it's like my whole schedule flipped. Yep. So now when my kids go to bed, that's my me time. That's when I journal. I'll be honest, I find meditation a little bit like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I know that's not the case, and I know I'm just supposed to sit there and breathe, but I'm sitting there and I'm trying to meditate, and my mind is like, you're doing this wrong, we're just going to stop. So what I do instead is I journal, and that's very helpful for me. And sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to write about when I sit down to write, but I just know I've got my 10 minutes and I can write whatever the heck I want. Yeah. Typically after I do that, I there's some breakthrough that I find about my day, whether it's, an emotion that I didn't realize I was feeling, or a thought that I didn't realize that I was having. But then I can take that and kind of reflect on it, and then, revamp things a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually exactly what I talk about in my mom design, which is just a freebie opt-in that I have. And it is about taking what I call NICU baby steps, because we talk about baby steps, right? But with NICU babies, you celebrate the smaller things. You celebrate when they pooped. Yes. You celebrate them holding their own body temperature. You celebrate everything when it's a NICU baby, and adopting that same mindset of like, hey, I took a shower today, I'm going to high five myself. I phoned a friend instead of folded the laundry today. That was something that I did for me, and I get points for that. I don't look at the laundry and say, oh, I failed today because I didn't get the laundry done. I say, way to go, self. You took 10 minutes for yourself. That can wait until tomorrow. And that's empowering, and when I started that, a few years back, during our NICU stay was when I kind of adopted that. So much mom guilt about walking away from the NICU. And I found spots that were super close so that I could, inch my way out. And eventually I made it to the parking lot across the street at Panera Bread, because I could see the entire hospital, which reminded me that there's hundreds of kids and hundreds of parents in here, and I'm not alone. This is not just my, everything. And I could see the mountains from there, which reminded me that the world was much bigger. This was 10 minutes that I took during our NICU journey that really like recentered me. And so when I talk about it, it's almost too simple, right? Like, okay, 10 minutes to recenter yourself. But there's so many things that you can do depending on who you are. You don't preferably like to meditate, but you like to journal and just get it out, whether you know what you're going to write or not. And there's literally hundreds of actions that a person could do depending on what lights them up, what makes them feel good, whether that's, creating a blog or whatever it is, And so, my ebook is actually full of 10 ways to self-wellness in under 10 minutes, because that's the whole premise, that you don't need a whole bunch of time, but it shifts everything around if you can prioritize it in right. Mm-hmm. And teach your kids, like, this is mommy's time. This is important. So I'm going to read my book. You're going to read your book. So even if you have kids with you, it's still time that you can do things together. I'm going to put in my audio. Here's your headphones. Get them some cute headphones. You're going to listen to your audio. And this is our self-care time. And so not only are you getting your own personal time, but you're teaching them that your time is important, which teaches them to value other people's time. You're also teaching them hands-on how to care for themselves.
Yes.
So that when they're irritated, you can say, "Ooh, I see that you're irritated. Let's use one of our coping skills. Let's put our headphones on, or let's write in our journal, or color in our book, or whatever, action it is that we decide to do." It sounds so simple, but we blow it off. We blow it off and say, "I need to do laundry. I need to make this phone call. I need to do this." And we run and run and run and run and run. And the day's over. And we're like, I'm exhausted and don't even know who I am anymore because the days have added up.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I talk to my families too, when it comes to kind of this concept of you're nurturing your child when you nurture yourself, is kids learn through modeling. Modeling is observational learning. So whether you like it or not, from the day that your child was born, they are watching you and they are learning from you. What do you want them to learn from you? Do you want them to learn how to be a rundown mother who doesn't take care of herself? No, you want them to learn that self-care is important. Mm-hmm. And by them seeing you take care of yourself, they understand how important the concept of self-care is.
Yeah.
And then it will be so much easier for them to adopt self-care strategies into their lives, not only by you modeling it, but by participating in those kind of activities together.
Yeah. And if every 8-year-old in the world learned how to do things like recenter when they were angry or meditate, then there'd be less adults running around in the world and depression and anxiety and suicidal and struggling with PTSD. If you learn those things at a young age, I tell my kids now, guys, I'm trying to learn this at 37 years old. I've spent the last few years literally devoting so much time to my healing journey. And if I would have learned this as a child, then how much more success would I be able to experience? Yeah. That's why I think every teenager needs a life coach too, but don't get me started on that one. I think it's so important.
Girls, I have the best mentor in the world for teenage girls, just as a side note. But yeah, going back to this whole concept, and along with the self-care is also kind of emotional regulation. I think society teaches us that emotions are scary and bad. And we try to avoid negative emotions like sadness and grief. And one of the things for me that has been very important in raising my kids is validating their emotions from an early age, even if I don't necessarily like the behavior associated with that emotion. So, when kids have a temper tantrum, when it's all over, gosh, it looks like you were really mad. Validating the emotion, we can always work on the behavior.
Yeah.
But validating the emotion and naming it from an early age, really such a difference as kids get older. You're right. Teenagers maybe wouldn't need as much of a life coach. I still think they need a life coach. I agree with you. But maybe they wouldn't need such an in-depth life coach if they were able to learn the skills early on, not only to feel their emotions, accept their emotions, but learn how to manage those emotions in an appropriate way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even down to my toddler, I'm even parenting him completely different than I parented my others, just because you only know what you know, right? And I've taken on so many tools and resources since then that I developed different habits for raising him. And so I always joke, but it's absolutely legitimate, that I have this social experiment going with the 4 of them, because 2 of them are adopted, and 1 of them was so complex, and they all had such different early upbringings that I'm really just doing a little experiment to see how they all turn out, and if they're they all feel really happy and healthy and hopeful about their life and their future. That's what we'd hope for as parents, right? Like, none of us sit here saying, I really hope that my son grows up and he's a doctor or a lawyer someday. Maybe we do, and if that's the case, maybe dig a little bit deeper. What is it that you're wanting for them? If you want them to be a doctor or a lawyer, is it that you're wanting them to be financially successful? And is that because you struggled financially and so you're projecting? Like, you can get information from those emotions that you're talking about. And if you can do it for yourself, then your kids can see that. I'm feeling really angry right now. Why is that? Well, I guess underneath that anger, I'm feeling scared. Okay, well, what can I do to not feel scared anymore? I can accept what I do have control over. I can accept what I don't have control over and make the appropriate changes, And so I think that I notice even my older teenagers are still trying to grasp this concept as I'm teaching it. Whereas Kaden, who's 4, is just like, oh, okay, we're going to have the best day of our lives today, because that's something that we say every morning. And we've adopted it as our attitude. Like, we're just going to have the greatest day of our lives today. It's just what he believes to be true. And so I think that we can give ourselves grace for not knowing what we didn't know when our kids were younger and just starting today on ourselves, because that will create that ripple, and you can't change their behavior, but your energies can impact other people and your words impact other people. And so by you starting with you and healing you first, and your mindsets and the way that you talk and the way that you think, those things will create that ripple outwards, which again is the premise of suck it, fill my bucket.
Yeah, absolutely. When you know better, you can do better. And it starts with yourself. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. Yeah. And it's amazing how when you take the time to fill your own bucket, that ripple effect that you're talking about, it becomes so much easier to parent your child when you're not running on empty, when you're not drained. I mean, when you're drained and you're tired, your brain is going to be so much more reactive. It's not going to have the energy it needs to kind of sit back and say, hold on, let me assess the situation before I scream at my kids.
Yeah. Well, there's only so much of that you can control, and that you can control with mindset, right? We're talking about mindset, but I really don't want to be that person that's like, just have a better mindset. Like, you can't ignore physiology. You can't ignore that you have PTSD or depression or anxiety. So circling back to, what does it look like to nurture yourself? Yes, it looks like taking time for self-care to do the things that you like to do, but it also looks like calling the doctor and seeing the therapist and doing the energetic healing around your trauma and healing your gut microbiome, which is what is in charge of the serotonin and the dopamine and the norepinephrine production within your body. Is not in your brain. So the solution ultimately isn't always adding serotonin with the medication. Sometimes it's talking to your doctor about changing your diet and adding the right, probiotic and nutrition factors in your life so that you can increase your stress resilience and not feel exhausted, not feel fatigued or in pain or have insomnia or, all of the things that can physically plague us as moms. Mindset is not just going to ignore that. Those are physiological issues that you need to reach out and get help and strategies and tools for, not always necessarily being pharmaceutical, but being able to talk to your provider and say, this is what I'm feeling, and this is the research that I've done for myself because I'm my own advocate. This is the research that I've done. What do you think? Let's work collaboratively to make sure that I'm thriving so that I can show up as that version of myself that I want to be for myself. Not even that like, oh, be the best version of you, but just like I wanted to wake my kids up smiling and saying, good morning, instead of, oh crap, you're awake. We have to go to school already. Like hashtag, where's my coffee? You know, like I wanted to nurture them, but it started with taking care of myself physiologically and spiritually and as an entire complete person.
Right. And that really does need to be a very personalized approach. You know, we were talking earlier about how you like meditation. Meditation is not really my thing.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you're working with healthcare providers and mental health providers that are on board with a personalized approach, you know, because, you know, gut microbiota, which I is fascinating, by the way. And my husband used to be like the international vice chair of the Gut Microbiota Society. But anyway, that may not be for everybody, and that's okay. But it's making sure it's a personalized approach. And you don't want some healthcare provider or any type of practitioner saying, do this, this, and this, and this.
Yes.
You know, you want to, again, the collaboration. Okay, you want me to do this. Why? How is this going to benefit me? This is what I think. What do you think about this? You know, I have families come in all the time that don't want, you know, medication, completely understand that. I don't want to use medication unless it's absolutely indicated. And as long as it's not going to harm their child, let's try it. Do you want to try essential oils? Love it. Go for it. Tell me how things are going. If things aren't going well, if things are going well, I want to know about that too.
Yeah.
So I can tell other families and provide them with as many options as there are so that they can really work for an individualized approach for themselves and their child.
Yes. You know, you kind of remind me a lot of my older son has been battling. Let me rewind. My older son has been battling rare cancer for like 6 years now. And he has a pediatric oncologist that we've been seeing since the beginning. And she really reminds me a lot of you in that way that she is very collaborative. And when she was suggesting chemotherapy right up in the beginning, I'm like, I want to try this and I want to try this. And I went to her with some stuff like, I want to put a sauna in my house and oxygenate his blood vessels. And she was like, okay, let's do it. Our plan is to, if that's what you're comfortable with, we are in a place with him where it's not life-threatening. So we can watch and wait and try the methods that you want to try. I'm not going to force you to do the treatment that you want to do. So I love that about her so much. But in that, when she said, Christina, it's time to do chemotherapy, I knew it was time to do chemotherapy. And we did end up doing it for an extended period of time. And the fact that we could both work together so well shows me what is possible. So when I entered the NICU experience, and I say experience because it was 500 days of NICU, I already knew that there were providers that were willing to work collaboratively with me, that was a thing. And so that's what I kind of wanted and expected and hoped for from our experience. And I was willing to speak to management in order to get it. I was willing to call patient advocacy if I didn't feel like my voice was being heard. And so I think it's, you know, that's also a good message for moms is be willing to do whatever is necessary, with whether it's advocating for yourself or for your kids, knowing, like you said in the very beginning, tying that back, if you walk in and say, these are my concerns, and your medical provider is saying, well, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to do, and you don't feel comfortable, find a different provider, because providers like you exist. And that's why I want to, you know, show you off to the world and help you grow your group, because it needs to be known that providers like you exist, parents like me exist, and that we can work collaboratively to heal ourselves and our kids and provide, if not healing possible, ultimately, because that's not always the case, provide the best quality of life for everyone involved. And that's ultimately what we're about, right? Providing a really happy and healthy and holy and fulfilled life for everyone, starting with the mom. and letting that ripple outwards.
And, and crap happens, and kids get cancer, and people die, and it's, there's ugly things in life, but if we can take care of ourselves, we provide ourselves with some of the strength and protection to weather those storms.
Yes.
And kind of going back to the whole collaborative, yes, I would not be doing my job if a parent left my office and had questions about my recommendations, and for the moms out there, and it doesn't matter if your child is 100% healthy or they have the most complex medical problems out there, do not hesitate to ask a provider to clarify.
Yeah.
You need to know what the recommendations are. You need to understand why those recommendations have been made. And you as the parent need to feel comfortable implementing those recommendations.
Mm-hmm. And listening to your gut response as they're talking. If they name a medication and you get a knot in your stomach, like maybe lean into that. Say, why did I have that profound emotion to what was just listed? Do I have a fear surrounding it? Or is my gut saying that that's not really what my body or my child needs? I had a mom that I worked with recently, and her medical provider was wanting to do some injections. Her child was having allergies, wanted to do some allergy injections. And that works for, kids. That works for some people for sure. In her situation, she didn't feel like that's what her kid needed, but she also didn't feel like she had another option, and she didn't know what it was. So she reached out into our group and said, like, are there other options besides injecting him with his allergens in order to build up his resistance? Well, there are, some other solutions, and some moms were like, hey, have you tried this? This was recommended to me by my doctor, or this is what I found. And she did find a solution outside of that. And she was literally near tears telling me, Christina, like, I was about to do something that I really felt like was not right for my kid, but my husband said it was necessary and the doctor said it was necessary. And I'm so glad I listened to my gut and reached out to other moms, because there were other options that were available. And I brought those options to my doctor, and they said, yeah, let's try those. And her kid now, I think we're like 5 months out, this story is, her kid now is thriving. Not living in pain, not covered in hives and itchy and unable to sleep. Like, we're talking about quality of life here.
Right. Absolutely.
Which is huge,
Huge. Because again, there's going to be crappy stuff that comes along the way that we can't control and that we can't fix. And, as moms, we just want to fix our babies, and we want them to be healthy and happy and thrive. And life is going to tell us that looks different for different kids. Some kids have heart conditions, some kids have cancer, some kids need a trach. It's, but taking care of yourself, filling your bucket so that you can advocate for yourself and your child.
And not waiting until the shit has hit the fan. Yes. Like, you never know when that cancer diagnosis is coming. You never know when that car accident is going to happen, and you're going to, we are not guaranteed tonight.
No.
We have this moment that we're in right now. And so back to that mindfulness piece of holding gratitude that this is where we're at right now, whether it's a hot mess or whether you feel like you're thriving, wherever it is that you're at, holding gratitude that, like, you're breathing, you're living this life right now. And there are solutions out there. There are people that can help you through this journey and through whatever journey may come. Maybe life is peachy for you right now, and you're looking at me going, well, I don't have a cancer diagnosis or a trait kit or, extreme allergies or this and that. Amen. Praise God. That's great. I would not wish that upon anyone. But life is going to happen. It continues to happen. If you've lived any time on this earth, you know that it does. So filling your bucket prepares you to be the most badass version of yourself that you can be, so that you're mentally and physically strong, so that you are not feeling like a failure. I remember going to bed so many times feeling like, man, I just wish one of these days I didn't go to bed feeling like a failure, and I know a whole bunch of moms who've said that, and I say, I feel you, mama.
Yeah.
and you say, I got you, mama, because you don't have to live that way. There are solutions.
Absolutely. Well, there's a chapter in the book that I wrote. It's called I Got You, Mama, A Pediatrician's Guide to Surviving and Thriving During Pregnancy, Childbirth, and the First Year of Your Baby's Life. And I remember when I had my son, I struggled so much with breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. And here I am, a pediatrician, going to work every single day, talking to parents about the benefits of breastfeeding, and my boobs don't work. And I felt guilt for that for so long. And it took me a very long time to fill my mama bucket in that situation because I felt so guilty for so long. And I didn't prepare myself ahead of time. If I would have filled my bucket ahead of time and told myself, you know what, Kristen, you're going to try your best. And that is enough. I would never have sunk into the pit that I had gotten myself into when my son was 6 months old. Never, fill your bucket now. You don't know what's going to happen in life. And that's not to scare you. You should not live in fear. You should embrace and enjoy and be grateful.
To empower you.
Yep.
Let it empower you.
Yes. Let it empower you, not scare you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, because I always say that, fear and faith are not all that different and that they're both believing in something that you can't see. The difference, you can't see what you're fearing and you can't see what you are holding faith for. The difference is the outcomes, because with fear, it leads you to inaction or a frantic, fearful action that doesn't lead to a positive end result for you. Whereas holding faith for something positive happening for you will lead to that end result of having that happy and fulfilled and, energetic vibe that you can carry around that ripples out to other people.
Yes. And other people need that positive energy. I mean, look how crazy the world is right now, Filling your bucket doesn't just fill your bucket. It is. It's a ripple effect. And there was a time back in my early career where I would have been like, energy, frou. You know what? I will tell you, I did a sound healing about a month ago. It was phenomenally healing. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand it. And I don't know why it worked. But I will tell you, I felt so good after that was over. So yeah, it really is. Even if we don't understand it, there really is this whole concept around energy. I mean, energy is all around us, right?
It is. I've really learned so much about this the past year that it's become like a passion topic of mine. I'm even actually in the process of getting certified in an empowered energetics course all around how energy, we can harness it and use it one way or the other. It is science. It is, quantum physics. It's literal and actual. And if we ignore it thinking, oh, it's just woo-woo because I can't see it, like our minds are not expanded enough to be able to experience life to its fullest. Right. And when you can take those blinders off and say, oh, there is so much more around me than I can see, I can feel it if I tune into it, I can harness it again like a superpower if I can use it right. It's magical. And so I actually just purchased a sound healing frequency 21-day system because I had the same experience as you where I tried it a while back and it was like a massage for my whole head, the inside of my brain. I was like, this is like a spa right now. And it literally, I'm kind of a science geek like that and totally geek out over stuff like that. So I did do an entire 45-minute video on why it works and how it creates new neural pathways in your brain and impacts you physiologically, which in turn creates an action, which that's the secret, right? It's not just in your head woo-woo. You have to have an action that follows it in order for an impact to be made. And so there's something to that sound frequency. I've been doing it for a little bit now. It's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to consider, I fell in love. I'm going to continue it. But again, another way, I didn't know that was going to fill my bucket. That never came into my mind of, but just being open to the opportunities in your life. If you're struggling to fill your bucket and you don't even know where to start, just be open to the experiences around you. You never know what's going to come your way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I think I'm gonna wrap it up on that, actually. That's beautiful.
All right.
Okay, so you can get a free sample of your book, right? At IGotYouMama.com.
Yes.
I'll throw that up on the screen there. And I hear that there's some other bonuses there as well.
So it's hard to see because I got my beauty light, but this is my first book. If you go to my website, www.IGotYouMama.com, you can download 3 free chapters. I actually also at the end of the month will be launching an e-course. It's called, now bear with me, I don't believe this, but they can act like it sometime. So it's called Kids Can Be Assholes, Understanding and Modifying Problematic Behavior of Toddlers and Preschoolers. And in that course, we walk you through the actual developmental stages of your child. How far is their brain developed? What type of social skills do they possess? What is their psychological development? What can they do and what can they not do? Mm-hmm. What are you expecting too much of? What should you be expecting more of? We talk about specific problematic behaviors like temper tantrums and whining and lying and a bunch of other stuff.
So good.
If you go to the website, you can sign up for notifications about when that course launches and also learn how to unlock a freebie mini course.
That's exciting. Good things coming.
Thrilled about all that stuff coming up, but thank you so much. I have loved talking about Fill Your Bucket. It's such an important topic, such an important topic for moms.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I've got your website there up on the screen. That'll also be in the show notes for those of you listening to audio. Your Facebook group will also be there as well in case people want to join that, or if they want to follow you on Instagram. I've got your handle there as well. So feel free to connect with Kristen. And I'm going to throw my website, since we spoke so much about Fill Your Bucket. You can get freebies and bonuses and, a whole bunch of good stuff, including Fill Your Bucket as an ebook at therippleimpact.net. So check that out there. And as I leave you, I actually have one question as we send our audience on its way. And I'm putting you on the spot, actually, because I wanted an unfiltered answer from you. Okay. So I purposely did it that way so that you wouldn't have time to prepare. So
I love it. I love it.
Okay. So here is the question. If there is one piece of information or a strategy or a mindset hack or anything that you could give to a mother on the day that her baby was born, and it was immediately downloaded and programmed forever to stay with her, to empower her, what would that strategy or hack or piece of information or word of wisdom be?
So it would be the life that you imagined for you and your child before your child was born is not going to happen, and that's okay. The life that is coming for you is the life that you and your child were exactly meant to live, and just roll with it. Ask for help when you need. Try to find gratitude every day. That's
so beautiful. That's so good. Oh, Kristen, thank you so much for being our guest here today. And with love as our guide, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for absorbing this today. And before you go, one more thing. If you can't tell, I'm on a mission to create a ripple impact in the world, starting with each mom at home, helping her thrive her life her way. If this podcast resonated with you, please leave a review. Make sure you subscribe and share it with your friends. If you're interested in working with me, book a soul chat with me in the show notes, or head over to my website at www.therippleimpact.net. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week. With love as my guide, I'll see you next time.